Now, the German government is banning the use of parts made by Chinese telecom giants Huawei and ZTE in its 5G networks. Berlin said it would phase out the technologies due to national security concerns. The announcement didn't come as a surprise for Germany's mobile operators. Berlin has been looking into the potential security risks posed by Chinese-made technology in the country's mobile networks. And for more, I'm joined now by my DW Business colleague, Kassandra Sundt. Hi, Kassandra, good to see you. So tell us more about simply the reasons why the government made this decision.
Well, as you said, this has not been a surprise. These conversations have been ongoing for years, not just in Germany, but in Europe, about Germany, about whether the country is putting its network at risk by relying so heavily on these parts. And we're talking specifically about the use of components from Chinese telecoms companies, Huawei and ZTE. Interior Minister Nancy Faeser said that the deal addresses two main parts of the German telecoms network. One is the core system, which primarily involves large data centers, and the other is access and transport networks, which is how consumers like you and I connect our devices to mobile networks. Now, the first one, these core networks, they have until 2026 to switch over their equipment, while the access and transport networks have a little bit longer to change over their critical management infrastructure systems. Those have to be replaced by 2029 at the latest.
Okay, and security obviously being the major reason for all of this?
Yeah, that's right. Interior Minister Faeser said the deal would protect Germany's critical infrastructure, not just communications between citizens, but between businesses and the state, for example. And she added that Germany has to become more independent and more crisis-proof. She had this quote that really struck me, that Germany's strategy has to revolve around reducing security risks and, unlike in the past, avoiding one-sided dependencies. That's a not-so-veiled allusion to Germany's previous dependence on Russia for natural gas, which sparked an energy crisis after the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine and the subsequent Western sanctions. So overall, there is this German desire to de-risk its relationship with China, and this seems like the latest step. Germany is not alone. The U.S. has successfully convinced European allies like Britain and Sweden to ban or restrict Huawei in their phone networks over fears of cyber snooping. And there are other countries that have taken similar action, like Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada.
Okay, and what about China's reaction to this?
Well, rumors about these negotiations, like we said, and reports have been flying around this week, with the official announcement coming this afternoon. But in reacting to the reports, the Chinese ministry was not happy. They said that there's no evidence that Huawei and other Chinese companies have endangered the national security of these European countries. They said that these companies actually create jobs, pay taxes, and build really high-quality infrastructure. So on a political level, this relationship remains complicated, but on a business and practical level, these telecoms companies have a big task ahead of them. So 5G was only started to be installed in Germany in 2019, but a 2022 study found that Germany relied on Chinese parts for the rollout of its 4G and 5G infrastructure. 59% of the 5G components were Chinese made. And so it's going to be a challenge to replace and avoid Huawei in the future. Huawei is the #1 telecom infrastructure company by brand value in 2024 by far. They're valued at over 31 billion USD.
A lot of work ahead. DW's Kassandra Sundt. Kassandra, thank you.
And China expert Mareike Ohlberg joins me from the German Marshall Fund in Berlin. Good to see you. It has taken a long time for Germany to agree on this ban, and it's still going to be 5 years before it takes full effect. Why has this been so difficult? What has taken so long?
I think there's been a lot of concern in Germany about offending the Chinese government with this. There's also been quite significant pushback from telecommunications companies. So overall, this took a lot longer than it could have taken. And the compromise that we have now could be, it does leave a lot to be desired. But ultimately, I think the silver lining is that now we finally have something. That we have certainty and that we have a way forward. So I'll take that.
Many other countries here in Europe and also the US, they had banned technology from Huawei and ZTE long ago. So has Germany been too soft on China?
It's certainly taken a lot longer than it should have for this decision. I think even back when we started the debate in 2019, it was fairly clear that there were certain risks associated with this in the long run. I think after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, it should have been fairly clear that this would be a step that would need to be taken. It did take longer, but again, at least we finally have something now.
Is this more about reducing German reliance on Chinese technology or more about security concerns?
I think we've had both. We've had both general security concerns about what could be done with this, but I do think there is the bigger reason lies in de-risking, reducing critical dependencies on China, on a country that is not an ally. So I think that was probably the more decisive factor.
Will there be consequences for consumers?
The government has talked for a very long time with the companies in question. I don't think that there is going to be any big fallout from this decision for our consumers.
Just in general, and to wrap this up, how concerned are you about an increasingly authoritarian China and its growing influence around the world?
I think it's something that we in Germany need to be aware of, and in Europe in general, and that we need to understand that when you have critical dependencies in strategic areas on China, that those dependencies can then be used to try to put pressure on the German government or on the European government. So that's why it is quite important to reduce those dependencies and make sure that we become less vulnerable in those areas.
And Germany has taken one step in that direction today. China expert Mareike Ohlberg from the German Marshall Fund in Berlin. Thank you so much for your take.
Thanks for having me.